welcome to Conversations with Irma. I hope you are all doing amazing. Whenever you see me coming on your screen, this is your dose of positivity, of joy, of, just wearing that beautiful smile of yours. Because what I say every day is that when you wake up and you feel alive, because when you wake up, it's because you're alive, you should thank God, because it's never something given to anyone. It's just grace. It's just another opportunity to be grateful and to live fully. You want to live before you die. This is what you should think about every time when you feel like, oh, I'm down. This is a bigger problem than I can solve. No, first of all, you start on a good point, and you start by being grateful for the gift of life. So just here to encourage you, just here to tell you that you are alive for a purpose, you're alive for a reason, and your presence here is needed, is valued, and we're here to add on that. We're here to speak more life to you. And today, one of my favorite conversationalists, a mother, an entrepreneur, a friend, a wife, so many things that she does. And today we join in the studio with ERICA. Welcome, ERICA.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction.
We have to be reminded every day that this is another day to be grateful. This is another day to do amazing. This is another day to fulfill our potential.
Yes.
I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but the more we speak that, the more it takes shape, because I'm pretty sure you believe that in the same way I do believe that our tongue has power.
Yes, yes.
And we keep creating with our words.
Yes.
So that's why we're here,
to
inspire and to have this conversation one more time.
So
I want to know, where were you born? How did that, shape your life? Just take us, through your story a little bit.
Sure. So I'm originally from Rwanda, but I was born in Denver, Colorado, so in the U.S. My brothers were born in the States as well, so we're first-generation Americans. So that's kind of where I grew up. I spent most of my life there. But I think my parents did a really good job of making sure they knew where we're from. They made sure to tell us about Rwanda, tell us about our culture. And so we were very much raised in a Rwandan home in the U.S.
Wow.
And so I loved that I could hear the language and, all of those things. So it kind of birthed curiosity to learn more about this country that you never grew up in or you never lived in. And so, we always used to just ask lots of questions, but I love that I was able to kind of have that well-rounded teaching, just to be able to know where it is that I was from. So yeah, that's where I grew up. And
wow. So growing up in the US, when did you come back to Rwanda?
So I moved to Rwanda in 2013. But as I said, because of this curiosity, and I felt like when I was younger, actually around high school, going into university time, I really had this huge identity crisis of like, who am I? And just trying to understand where I actually fit. Like I said, I grew up in the States, and so, and I'm American, but at the same time, knowing this home that I never lived in. And so it made me just want to learn more about my country and, learn the language, because I didn't really speak the language. I could understand, but I didn't speak the language. So my parents moved in 2004. They moved back to Kenya, and when I went to university. But in 2011, I took a sabbatical because I was overworked. I was drained. I was just working so much and going to school at the same time. And I reached this burnout phase. And I was like, you know what? I need to take a 6 months just break. And for me, it was like, what better place to go than to go to Rwanda?
Home.
I went home. My parents were living here at the time. So I was here in 2011 for about 6 months and fell in love. Like, I was like, I need to move back home. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need to move back home. Of course, I went back to the States, got back into my routine, got back into finishing school, and then from school got a job, and then got a promotion, and then it just kept going. So I kept saying, I'll move back next year. I'll move back next year. I'll move back next year. And at one point, I just asked myself, I was like, I keep saying I'm going to move back, and I'm not. And why is that? And I think there was fear. There was a lot of fear of like, am I going to fit in? Am I going to be accepted? Again, I spent so much time in the US, but feeling like I didn't really fit in. I wasn't really accepted. And so trying to find my place, trying to find my identity of who I am, and being able to embrace later, what I learned is being able to embrace all of who I am, which is American, but also Rwandan. And so, yeah, there was a lot of fear of the unknown. What am I going to do? What job will I have? All of that. And I just realized I'm just making excuses. I'm not going to know until I just go. And I really felt like God was just telling me to take a step of faith and just move. And so in 2013, September, I moved. I told my friends and family, I'm going to Rwanda. I'm giving myself 2 years. I know the first year is probably going to be hard, so I'm giving myself 2 years, but I'll probably be back. And here I am almost 10 years later, still here.
And we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, you are doing amazing here. We can see your work as an entrepreneur. We're going to get into that. But as we still, just discussing about your journey, you just say something. I took a step, but that was by faith. What is the importance of faith in your life?
Oh gosh, it's everything. It's everything to me. Honestly, I'm nothing without Christ. I grew up in a Christian home. I accepted the Lord when I was very, very little. Recommitted my life to the Lord when I was 13. And for me, it's my guiding compass. So I believe that Christ, created me for a purpose, that I'm not here by accident. There's a reason why I'm here. And it's to make an impact in this world, to share his love and his joy with people, through my giftings, through whatever my strengths are. And it's really been a discovery to learn about my strengths, who I am, accept who I am. Because so many times I've really, tried to be somebody else because I saw and I was like, that seems better. That seems, I don't know, people are more accepting of that. And so I've always tried to, follow what other people wanted and just be a people pleaser. And for me, I feel like God has just been the constant in my life. I have wavered. I've gone like this.
Now you come back
God
to
has
him.
been constant. And I come back to him because he's always there. And so one of my life verses is the mind of a man plans his way, but it's the Lord that directs his steps. That's Proverbs 16:9. And I really believe that that's been the journey of my life is I've planned my way, what I want to do, how I want to do it. But the Lord has always guided my steps. And I believe that I'm here today because of what God has done in my life.
Wow. And don't you think your faith has been influenced, by your parents or your family?
Yes, 100%.
So what do you say to people who will tell you you're a Christian and you have those belief systems because you grew up in a Christian home, so that's all you know? How do you say, like, okay, it's what I know, but at the same time, this is my personal encounter that I had with Christ. So, like, I want you to talk about that because that is like people have debates over this. They're like, what if you were born in a Muslim home or a Hindu home? Maybe you could be Hindu right now, but is it just because your parents were Christians that you are a Christian? Or is it because of your personal encounter, personal experience with Christ that you have, that belief system?
It's a great question. I think one of the things that when I look at my parents and just how they raised us, even in the Bible, it talks about train up a child in the way that he should go. And so my parents did their best to teach us about the Bible, to tell us about God, and to raise us in that Christian home. But at the same time, they gave us room to also ask questions, to push back, which I loved, because you said something key, like at some point you have to make it your own. And I came to this point, I think when I was 4, I did it, but probably because that's all I knew. That's what my parents were teaching me. But as I grew up and I was 13, it was like, now I'm making this faith my own. Like, it's not this faith because my parents taught me this and said that this is what you need to believe. But I hit this crossroad of where, like, no, now I'm believing it because I've had a personal encounter, because I've seen God work in my life, because I feel like Jesus is my friend, and that's who I journey through each and every day with. So at some point, I made it my own personal decision. I do think that both, and now as a parent, I think that both things are very key in the sense of being able to guide and to teach your children, but at the same time, give them room to make decisions themselves. It's not about brainwashing or trying to say, this is what you have to believe, and you have no decision around it. So yeah, that was my experience. But I believe now I stand on my faith because it's what I've encountered personally. I've seen God move in my life in amazing, amazing ways. And so, yeah, it's my faith. It's my own.
Wow. I think it's something important, not to even say important. It is crucial to have your own experience, because what you know, what you understand, what you have discovered, what you have tasted yourself, nobody can take it, away from you, because it's something you know, it's something you feel, it's something you live by. So I think it's so important, like, for people who share the same faith, people who are Christians, to actually be hungry and thirsty to know the Lord personally, not just to depend on what they're being taught or an example to follow. Because what happens is, remember, we're humans, and when you're just following Christ and the Lord because someone else taught you that, the moment they disappoint you, you leave everything.
It crumbles.
You're like, I didn't know Christians are like this, so I'm giving up. No, those are people that disappointed you. That is not God. So the moment you learn that, yes, we have Christ, but we're living in a human body, so that's why we make mistakes, then, I think it frees you in some way. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. And there's something you mentioned about, being insecure, not accepting yourself, having, that need to people please. Where did that come from?
It's a great question. I don't even think I can pinpoint exactly where that came from. I just know that when I think about that, and sometimes I get emotional, but when I think about that, I feel like most of my life I've always just tried to do things for other people and not for myself. And I think it's been fear of, like, being seen for really who I am, wanting to be accepted. I think, there was a stint where we lived in Kenya when I was in elementary school. And then we moved back to the States, and I was in 6th grade in middle school. And I remember going back to school and feeling very, very different. And I got bullied and I got made fun of. And, people just said, like, cruel things, like, go back to Africa where you came from. And, things that I just realized, okay, like, I'm different and people aren't accepting me for me. And so maybe I need to act a certain way. So I remember at that time I was like, Mom, I want my hair straight. I wanted bangs. I wanted, like, the clothes like everyone else was wearing. And I just wanted to be accepted. And so I think I struggled, like I said, with my identity of just knowing who I am. And I think it's been a journey of just realizing that, like, first and foremost, like, I'm a daughter of the Most High King. Like, that's who I am. Like, He has created me perfectly, beautifully, wonderfully made, has a plan for me. And it's like, I knew all those things, but it didn't translate to my heart of really, really believing that. I was like, yeah, I know that, but. And so I think, I get kind of sad because I'm just like, man, like, all those years that I was just fighting to be somebody else. And I feel like it's been a journey, but in the recent, and it's been very recent, I feel like in the recent, like, 4 or 5 years has just been this new discovery of, like, who I am, and being okay to share that with the world, with people, and not fear judgment or rejection, because I'm so confident in who God has created me to be and what my purpose is. And it was until I unlocked just being vulnerable with myself first, of like, man, like, I'm in this situation and this really sucks and I don't like this. And I had to be real with myself first, like take off that mask and just like, ERICA, you're pretending to be someone that you're not, and you need to stop doing that. Like that's not serving anyone, right?
Wow.
There's God has created you for a reason, and there's people who need the real you.
Yes.
And so
The world
once
needs
the
real
world
you.
needs the real, yes, and the real us, like all of us, right? We
So
all need to be real, but it's a journey. And so it's like, okay, now I realize that, and so now I had to make steps towards that. Okay, let's just be real. Let's be vulnerable.
I want to hear the steps. I want to hear the steps, because this is really a huge problem.
Yeah.
You know, I know you have a passion and interest into mental health.
Yeah.
And you can see how things are,
Yeah.
especially in young people.
Yeah.
So I really want to hear the steps. How do you come from a place of not accepting yourself, of doubting yourself, of like trying to please other people, of not embracing the authentic you? How do you move from there to actually embracing who you are as a person, with your personality, with the things that you like, with the things that make you happy, with the things that you can, you know, actually even monetize, you know, like how do you get there? Because I believe one of the factors, maybe you will tell us more about your own journey, but I believe one of the major factors or things to do is to feed yourself, to feed your soul with the right things. What do you consume? What do you watch? What do you read? What do you allow in your environment? So I want you to tell me in practical ways, how did you move from that place to where you are today?
Yeah, another great question. I think it's a journey. I don't think I'm there yet, honestly. I think that the practical steps is literally like 2 steps forward and then you fall back, and then forward and you fall back. I think the biggest thing for me is just like, we all need to ask ourselves, like, why am I here? Like, why am I here? ERICA, like I was born and I'm here today, but like, why? For what purpose? Right? And I think everyone needs to ask themselves that question.
The why.
The why, like, why am I here? And for me, I was just like, okay, like God has created me and I am here on this earth and I'm supposed to do something. Now, I think that it's been a recent discovery of what my purpose and what my passions are. And the more I step into that, the more I unlock and the more I learn about myself. But it's really been a journey of just accepting me for who I am, my strengths, my weaknesses, just like how I am, right? It's a long story, but something very critical happened when I was in college, when I was in university, and I kept it a huge secret. And I was like, I'm not going to share this with anyone.
What?
And it was so like, there was so much shame and so much guilt that just clouded over me. And I went through a journey of like a couple years, just, I'm not going to share this because what are they going to think of me? Like, you know, how are they going to take me? And so I kept this, and I was like, I'm going to die with this, right?
And that was so heavy.
And it was heavy. It was heavy. And I remember over and over just praying and asking God. I was like, God, and I was like, I need you to take this away, because I don't want to feel this anymore. I feel like I'm in bondage. And so I went on a mission trip, and we ended up getting to share our testimony. So I think I'm being so cryptic here, but like basically what it was is I lost my virginity when I was in college, and that's something that was so important to me, and that I felt like I'm going to save myself from marriage. This is what my personal decision of what I wanted. And so when that didn't happen, I was like, oh my goodness, like what are people in the Christian community going to think of me? What are my friends going to think of me? Because I was very, very, very like actively talking about how we need to be pure. We need to save ourselves from marriage. These are the importance. This is why. And I still very much believe that, but it happened. It happened. And so I had so much shame and bondage. So I remember praying, I was like, God, I just need you to take this away from me. When we were on a mission trip, we had to share a testimony, and I was like, I'm not going to share this because I don't want anyone to know. And I got up there and I ended up sharing my testimony, and that came out. I shared it. I shared everything. And I remember as I was sharing, right before I shared, I was like, I don't know who here has been living under shame and guilt for a decision that they've made or something that's happened to them. But God is so merciful, God is so graceful, and he doesn't want you to live in this bondage. And there is power in our testimony. And when we share it, you know, like we just come before God and say, God, I surrender. Like, I'm not sane, like I'm beautiful. And so I'm sharing this, and I could just physically feel like the weight just lifting off of me.
Wow.
And so that evening I had a dream, and that's when I got my daughter's name, Selah. And I just remember like feeling so hopeless, like, God, like, I don't know what my life is going to be now. Like, am I ever going to get married? And God was like, you will, you're going to get married, and you're going to have a daughter, and her name's going to be Selah. I kept seeing the name Selah, and I was like, what does that mean? And in the morning when I woke up and I was reading my Bible, I kept seeing Selah in the Psalms. And in that dream, I was also in a stadium. I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, don't tell everyone this, but I'm in a stadium talking to like thousands of people. And I'm just like, so I wake up and I'm like, okay, God, I'll do anything, but I don't want that.
I don't want to speak to people.
I don't want to speak to people.
I don't want to be in public.
Yeah, I don't, because as much as people see me as this outgoing, and I love these conversations, but as soon as I have to talk to more than like 5 people,
you're like
right?
anxious.
I get anxious, I get nervous, and I'm like, this isn't for me. So I've always shied away from speaking engagements, speaking in public, all of those things. And it's funny. And so I kind of parked it, and I just ignored that piece of the dream, but I've seen things come to reality. Like, I got married. I have a wonderful husband. I have a daughter, Selah. I have a son, Liam. And I'm like, man, like God's promises have just like come throughout like my whole life, right?
Yes.
And then after I had my daughter, I dealt with a lot of postpartum. And so I had postpartum anxiety, and I just really like got to a really, really low point. I think one, you know, you get married and you're like, okay, like, what is my role as ERICA, but then also as a wife? Like, that whole identity crisis again. Like, I'm a wife now, but I'm also still ERICA. Now I'm also a mom, but I'm also still ERICA. And so just trying to find my place, and I really struggled, and it was just like a pretty low point for me, of just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wasn't really happy in my work. Not because my work was so fulfilling. It was like a great job, but I just felt like I was doing things that were draining me and not necessarily like filling me up. And so again, I went back through that journey of just trying to figure out, okay, what fills my cup? What do I enjoy doing? And the more I started doing those things, the more I started just unlocking even more. So to get back to your question about just, I think for me, I feel like there's been this calling on my life that God gave me that dream of speaking to thousands. And I kind of was like, okay, maybe it's not speaking physically to thousands in a stadium. Maybe, because at that time I was doing stuff on Facebook and encouraging people with like scriptures and just trying to encourage them, motivate them for their days. And I was like, okay, maybe it's like behind, like on social media. Like I could just do that behind the camera. And so I was doing that a bit more. And I felt like, you know, at one point I was the one sitting and just ingesting, like when you talk about what you're allowing like into you, like what inspires you, what are you feeding your mind? For me, I was always looking out for people that were just sharing their life like vulnerably, because it just touched me. It made me feel like, okay, like I'm not alone. You know, when people talked about their seasons of depression, or when they're really sad, or when they're struggling with their marriage, or this and that, I just would listen. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not just me. Like someone else is, you know, is struggling with this. And it made me feel seen. It made me feel heard. And I felt like at one point, especially during COVID, when I was in my low point, God was like, I want you to start sharing. Like, you've been in this seat of just listening to people and encouraging you and kind of getting you out of the pits. And I now want you to share your journey, because your story is for somebody else. And so I think, yeah, it's one, just asking yourself, who are you? Like, what is your purpose? And then I think taking steps to just be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is very scary. Yeah. There's fear of rejection. Yeah. You know, am I going to be accepted? But being vulnerable is so key. And I think we got to be vulnerable with ourselves, and then we need to be vulnerable with others. And being vulnerable with others doesn't mean you have to share with thousands, but you could share with one person. but like, is there someone in your life that really, really knows you, that knows your biggest fears, that knows what your dream is, how outlandish or how crazy it feels? But like, don't sit with that alone, because I don't believe that we were made to walk this life alone, right?
Yeah.
It's about connection. It's about connecting with people.
I mean, we were made for connection.
We were made for connection. Yeah. So I think it's just a journey. And as I said, it's like a step forward, 2 steps backwards, because I have it all the time where I feel like, and I share a lot vulnerably, but I also have moments of like, why did I just share that? And then the fear creeps in. What do people think? And then I'm like, it doesn't matter what people think. Like, I know who I am. I know who God says I am. And like, yes, what people say about me or how people will judge me will hurt. I will feel sad. I might cry about it, but I'm going to come out strong and just know, okay, like that's their opinion of me, but I am so secure and I know who I am. And I think we each need to get to that point of just being okay with who we are, what we bring to the table. And the more we do that, the more you're going to see your passions coming alive. Like now I can speak in front of people. I still get scared, but I'm also not striving to speak like Michelle Obama or like all these people that I'm just like, oh, wow, when they speak, they like command the room. Oprah Winfrey, they like so poised and amazing. And I'm just like, I need to come up and just tell people I'm nervous and maybe do something goofy, make a face, do a dance. But because that's me.
That's who you are.
And the more I could just be me, the more natural it is, and the more I'm going to share my heart. And that's what people want to see, is that authentic and genuine person, not the one that's trying to mask and be a certain version that they think people will like.
Wow. Should I say Selah?
Selah, yes.
Selah. For those who just joined us, welcome, welcome. This is Conversations with Irma. I promised you something. I promised you a platform where we're going to be vulnerable, where we're going to share our hearts, where I'm going to have amazing, incredible people who are not ashamed to talk about their stories, to share their successes, but at the same time, share their failures, just help us to learn and relearn some things and unlearn some other things. So this is just amazing. I'm so happy to welcome you. And yeah, let's just carry on with our guest today, ERICA. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm learning a lot. I'm being inspired.
You're getting a lot out of me.
And if you ask me, how do you keep yourself inspired? I'll be start saying, I just have amazing people on my show and I'm inspired that way. Thank you so much for sharing. There is this thing about being vulnerable and not having any part of you that you reject, any part of you that you hide. It's so liberating. I know it's not easy to get there, but it's liberating. Myself, there's a part of my story that I wasn't proud of growing up, and I wanted to hide it for many years. I was like, I don't accept this part of me because it makes me feel different, and I better hide it. But the moment I opened up, the moment I shared my history, my story, my background, I just felt liberated. And I felt like in my heart, I didn't have any bitterness, any anger, but I just had, thankfulness. And, I was just grateful for the gift of life, grateful that I'm here, because when we keep asking ourselves, like, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? I know we can have those moments because we're humans, but we should never stay there. But instead of asking ourselves, that question, we'll be like, okay, what's the reason behind? What's the purpose behind? So thank you so, so much for sharing. So now I want to talk about motherhood. Some people say that you make it look so easy. And you should tell us, is it really easy?
It's not easy.
You have to tell us. What are the values? What keeps you going as a mother?
What keeps me going as a mother is Selah and Liam.
Oh.
They are, they're the greatest blessing. I always heard like people say like you'll never know a love like when you have your own children. And I didn't really, I'm like, okay, like I know it's great and it's a blessing, but it's so true. Like it's something that you can't explain. You can't, I don't know. I don't have words for it, but I just know that like, I know I've always wanted to be a better person for this world, for just people to shine light, But now it's like, I want to be a better person for my kids, like so that they can grow up and have a beautiful role model of just what life is and how you tackle and handle life. And I've taken away from trying to be the perfect mom. Like, I'm a recovering perfectionist because I don't believe that, I mean, striving for perfection, you're never gonna get there.
Yeah, never.
Because we're not perfect.
We're not.
And I think that there's power in just that vulnerability of just showing, you know, when life is hard, like sometimes I cry and sometimes I feel down and I feel sad. And I practice those things with my kids, you know, and just tell them like, Mommy's just a bit sad today. And, you know, now my daughter will come and be like, Mommy, are you okay? Are you sad? Do you need a hug? But it's like, I realize that sometimes when we feel like we need to be strong for our kids, I agree, like that could be like from a good heart of just like, I just need to be strong, like for my children. But then when they grow up and they look back and they're like, my mom was always strong. And then they start facing like hardships where they're breaking down or they're dealing with like life that's coming their way. And now they're like, I don't know how to handle this because my mom was always strong. Like, I just need to be strong and just like push through. So I think for me, one of the values is just being real, like inviting them into just this journey. And with motherhood, it's really about just learning as I go. I mean, I think some things are innate and God gives you this mother instinct, but there's a lot of things that I'm learning and unlearning. When I look at like my insecurities, like how they came about, you know, I'm very intentional about how I raise my children and making sure that they have a voice. Still guiding them because they're kids. Yeah, building their confidence, like all these
because you don't want them to experience traumas. You know? You want them to grow up as healthy kids.
Yeah. Wow. But you know, and I think the reality of, again, I'm not perfect and I know that. And so I know like I'm going to hurt my children, not intentionally. I'm going to say the wrong thing sometimes. That's going to make them feel insecure or whatever. But I know that I'm not perfect. And I think if I can just share with them, like, Mommy is learning on this journey as well. Right.
Yes.
And like, help me. Like, I want to leave room for that connection, for that communication with my children. But motherhood it's an amazing journey. It's a roller coaster. I think that there's moments where you're just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. How do I stay sane? But at the same time, just feeling like I don't know what my life was like before kids. Wow. I do think that it's healthy to take some breaks. I talk about mommy staycations and mommy breaks. And so there's times where I'll take like a day and just go and do like a self-care day, or maybe I go away for a night, just to, because at the end of the day, like I am a mom, but I'm still Erica too.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
And before we end our conversation, you know, there's this question that I've decided to ask all my guests, all my beautiful guests. Consider the world, your stage right now, and you had one message to tell to everybody. What would be the message?
I love it. I love it. I would say that there's only one you. There's only one you. And so I want you to be authentically you. I want you to be genuine. I want you to show up because there's someone that needs the real you. There's someone that's going to break free from their bondage because of the real you. There's someone that's going to see joy in a different way because of the real you. And so I feel like sometimes we hide, we mask because we're afraid of the fear of the rejection. But there's also this other side that's so beautiful where people are wanting that. People want real. They want realness. And so I would just encourage people to just be authentically you.
Wow. Be authentically you. And that brings us to the end of our conversation. Honestly, I wanted like 2 hours, literally, because it was so good. But thank you so much for hanging out with us. This was Conversations with Irma. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay grateful. Bye.
Amen.